Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns a robust relationship between the United States and Pakistan that is now developing in different spheres. It has been highlighted by Ned Price while talking to media very recently. The desire to further strengthen cooperation with Pakistan, and also Syed Naveed Qamar Saab, who is in Washington, has been highlighting that different aspects of our trade relations that need to be strengthened, whether it be in the form of exporting mangoes, whether it be in the form of seeking renewal of US tariff waiver, whether it be agriculture or IT as products that could further strengthen our trade relations. More in the following report.
The United States and Pakistan have a robust partnership based on decades of bilateral cooperation and support. In order to bolster bilateral relationship in trade and investment, Pakistan and the United States have relaunched the Trade and Investment Framework Agreement process. TIFA mechanism provides a structure to both the governments to engage in future trade and investment, and the two sides held their first ministerial level meeting of TIFA in 7 years. U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Catherine Tai hosted Commerce Minister Syed Naveed Qamar and his team for talks on the US-Pakistan Trade and Investment Framework Agreement. The talks focused on seeking greater access to the IT market in the US for Pakistani products and professionals. Pakistan is also seeking to expand its agricultural exports to the United States. Reiterating US commitment to deepen our economic and commercial ties, the US State Department spokesperson Ned Price has emphasized that a robust trade relationship between the United States and Pakistan is important to bolster Pakistan's economic stability. Ned Price pointed out that the US investment in Pakistan is the highest it's been in over a decade, and US corporations have announced more than $1.5 billion in investment plans in Pakistan since 2019. Pakistan is looking for the breakthroughs and talks on the US-Pakistan Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, since the US remains the largest export market for Pakistani goods with a bilateral trade volume of $12 billion.
We've been joined by Dr. Usman W. Chohan. He's a political economist and, of course, a regular on our shows. Thank you very much, Usman, to have joined us. Usman, so much is happening on the Pak-US front, and it's heartening to see that finally the US is warming up to Pakistan, and we might see a strengthening of relations in different spheres. The TIFA ministerial meeting, let's talk about it first of all. In the whole context of the media briefing that was given by Ned Price, I would like to quote what he said as far as the ambits of relationship that could be looked into as far as Pak-US collaboration is concerned. He said, and I quote, "We believe there is great potential to expand bilateral trade with Pakistan, particularly in energy, agricultural equipment and products, franchising, retail trade, information and communications technology products and services." This is not bad as a starting list.
It's not bad at all. It's actually a very significant list. Best way to think about it is to break it into two parts: the trade side and the investment side. The trade side is very important for us because we have a significant trade volume. We mentioned in your report of 12 billion, which is in our favor. We have a surplus, and we don't always have a surplus with countries that are trading partners, so that's very good. And the things that we export to them, we have now an opportunity to move higher up in the value chain. Then there's the investment side, and on the investment side, it would be very nice. The areas you listed are very important for that. The other thing is, as the world, which is to say Europe and the US in particular, are diversifying their supply chains away from China, countries such as Pakistan, but not only Pakistan, have a unique opportunity now to seize various tiers of the value chain. And the more of that and the higher up of that we can gain, the better. So when we negotiate this TIFA, Trade Investment Framework Agreement, it should be with a state of mind that we have a new opportunity and we can cover a lot of the value chain at this time.
All right, let's talk also about the information technology. Syed Naveed Qamar Saab has been quoted as far as suggestions that include as far as the greater IT and tech cooperation with the US that is being sought by Pakistan is concerned, amplification of tax regime for IT businesses, training, capacity building of IT professionals, simplified transactions, introduction of IT subjects in schools and colleges, and better interministerial coordination. Important steps?
Absolutely. And the two that are most important are the ones that go into the human capital portion, which is to say training the IT professionals and encouraging IT courses. Because as you well know, as all of us well know, there is a lot of IT talent in Pakistan. And oftentimes they have to spearhead initiatives in their own limited, with their own limited wherewithal. And therefore they cannot scale up quickly. And that means that Pakistan advances along the IT value chain slowly compared to other Asian countries. So our exports are at 2 billion in IT. Other countries may be up to 100 billion. That means that there is a lot to do. And the other thing is that in the value chain of IT exports in the services side, so not hardware, but on the services side, we are quite far down, which is to say that it's the stuff that AI would probably replace in 5 to 10 years anyways, which is scary. So to push that,
we are seeing through Chat GPT and others how that could be scary enough.
Yes, exactly right.
But Dr. Saab, I'd like to understand also something. This TIFA meeting that is happening after a period of 7 years, do you feel it could lead to a breakthrough as far as trade relations between our two countries is concerned? How optimistic are you?
Well, I wouldn't say breakthrough, but breakthroughs, which is to say that you would have several different advancements, because we're looking at it in a multi-pronged manner, and so are the Americans. It's a very good thing, because Pakistan in this current geopolitical environment strongly believes, wisely, that we should have good economic relations with the US and China, the two major economic powers. China has always been encouraging and mature about that, but America has seen this a lot as a zero sum in the past. But now they're warming up to it. They have a different worldview, which includes an Indo-Pacific strategy, as they call it, but we don't. We call it Asia-Pacific. And so as their worldview changes, there are favorable prospects for Pakistan to have a more economic-based relationship rather than a geopolitical security stuff, which is actually destructive for society in the longer run.
Usman, what measures in your point of view could Pakistan now take, now that this relationship is building up, is warming up, the US is warming up to Pakistan in different spheres? What can now Pakistan do to enhance bilateral trade between our country and the US? Because the US is a very, very important partner.
Yeah, that's a very, very important question. I think it's the most important question, because if I were to recommend it to you, the recommendation would be the same for all countries we trade with, which is above all quality control, which is that the things that are produced, manufactured or serviced through Pakistan should be of a high standardized quality compatible with international standards. It's not always that we conform to them. And if you cut corners in this, ultimately the buyer gets disappointed, and there is a lot of competition there. This is something for us to work on our own. It's a work ethic issue, but it's also a regulatory oversight issue, because not everybody will conform. So sometimes you need to have somebody above making sure. Quality control is the most thing, so that the American buyer develops a relationship with us, and the American seller also. But I'm not worried about American quality. I'm worried about our quality, right?
Now, one of the many topics that are going to be and have been part of this discussion under the TIFA, the ambit of TIFA is possible further cooperation, market access issues, labor, environment, protection, enforcement of intellectual property rights is what you talked about, and capacity building. Easy to achieve from the Pakistani side?
It is. It does take hard work, but it's not difficult to achieve. The best arbitrage strategy in this would be that you take firms which are facing restrictions, such as, for example, Chinese firms, but they're part of the supply chain here, and then you do it with your connectivity doctrine. You see it in that light, and then things go to America. Or Pakistan offers the market access to Central Asia, which has been highlighted in the press as well, to Central Asia and to the region for American goods. So better integration is very key here. And it is easy to do, but it requires, first of all, continuity of policy, and second, a bit of focus that, economics really matters. And with the current economic circumstances, I'm glad to see that people are starting to awaken to the reality of what economics means.
All right. Also, Usman, I'd like to now focus a little bit on the information technology sector, because that's an important sector. There are countries that are, making billions and trillions out of it with because of their collaboration with the US. And why should Pakistan be behind all of that? We've got extremely talented IT individuals, professionals. As Net Price also says, and I quote, US companies and their local affiliates are among Pakistan's largest employers, with roughly 80 US companies directly employing more than 120,000 Pakistani. Why can't more such companies under the ambit of the IT work with Pakistan? Also, I'd like to refer to what Commerce Minister Syed Naveed Qamar Saab said, that better facilities and the right policies could lead to exponential growth in the IT sector. What should be the roadmap?
The roadmap should be first working on the infrastructure, which we're already quite good at. So we are one of the countries that is best poised to go for 5G. So having the infrastructure ready. And the second is the policy continuity. You see, the taxation regime here, for example, has penalized many of our IT people, and so they have sought to move abroad or go to the freelance instead. This is very bad. A lot of our IT people are actually based out of the Gulf now. This you can't have. You need to have them work in Pakistan and give them the freedom to be sustainable economically rather than jump on them with the tax regime, which is very unproductive. So the policy continuity is second. And the third is building long-term relationships. American corporations are very, very serious, and you may get the impression that they think quarter to quarter, but this is actually not true. They do set out long-term plans, they do have a competitive spirit, and they are answerable to shareholders. That means that they need people around the world who are as serious as them. And this seriousness is much better ingrained in our IT sector. Why? Because many of our best people in IT actually learned their trade, honed their skills in Silicon Valley or in Toronto or somewhere else, and brought that work ethic back. So we have a huge advantage already. And so it's time to take it off, because 2 billion is a little bit too small. I would hope for something like 20 to 30 billion in IT exports, because this is the future. The value added of the future is intellectual property. So we have to respect intellectual property, and design, which is a creativity thing. And you and I know how creative our society is, but perhaps not always in the productive sense. So we have to foster this creativity in our youth, that they can see and then take advantage of new opportunities. Because so far in history, in our IT, normally we've taken a business model abroad and then just adopted it here. For example, the Uber in a local form. Right, so that's, or the microfinance in the local form. This is not creative. You're just applying this model. And of course, that is what China did initially too. But now China is in many ways competing with the United States at the cutting edge of what, for example, TikTok, right? So now we have to stop from the imitation part to advancing the boundary, and there is no stopping you once you are in a creative state of mind, anticipating.
That is, I have the Pakistan stamp, in fact, on it. As originating in Pakistan or fabricated in Pakistan, which reminds me of Pakistani mangoes. Pakistan has been trying a lot to export its mangoes to the US as a proper, agricultural export, but it has not yet, received the exact, the necessary response as far as the export quantity that Pakistan wants to send it to the United States of America. How can the US be a promising market for Pakistan's agricultural exports? What needs to be done?
Oh, this is a very fascinating case study, because our mangoes are the tastiest in the world. There is an enormous variety of them too, about 200 to 300 varieties. It's remarkable. And yet it's the Mexican mangoes that dominate in the American market.
Why?
Part of that, oh, well, good question. Part of that is the transport cost, right? It's just a truck from across the Rio Grande, as opposed to shipping, which will take 12 days. So there's a transport cost thing. But the second is the branding. Not all mango exporters have maintained quality assurance. And second, they haven't been good on the marketing side. So if you target it as a premium mango, as opposed to the standard staple, like you want an exotic fruit in your Krugers, then you will succeed, because the Pakistani mango, being the best mango, which it is easy to market, and it should be done. Otherwise, if you compete with the Brazilian or the Mexican mango just as something, a summertime snack, you won't get very far, because Mexican mangoes are all right, you see?
That is so true, and I've had the chance to taste some of them, and nothing compares to Pakistani mangoes. I can assure you of that, Usman, and I'm sure you agree with me on that as well. Whereas the US side wants to boost the exports of beef and soybeans, Pakistan is also looking towards pharmaceuticals. Could this be a sector that the US could be interested in the near future from Pakistan's side?
Yes, but this is a tricky industry, because uh, the developing world has excelled in the generics, which is to say that the patent has expired, and so you can do the low-cost manufacturing. And there's many patents because a lot of innovation in medicine happened in the mid 20th century or the three quarters through the 20th century, and those patents aren't there anymore. And that's where countries in Asia have really succeeded. But as far as new variants, new development, R&D goes, the costs are very high, and the Americans will always maintain the advantage in that, and so will the Europeans. So as far as big pharma goes, our way to succeed would be by focusing on the generic side, but then we have to look at the competition and the volumes, and that is a very serious challenge. I mean, there are very, very big Goliaths in Asia in generic pharma, so it's a tricky industry.
All right, but there's something that you mentioned in the very beginning, and that was Pakistan helping diversify US supply chains. That is something also that Pakistan could easily do. What's your point of view on that?
Absolutely. It's a question of the volume and the transportation. As far as the infrastructure goes, you could literally have it in to the port and out. And some countries excel in that. Bangladesh, for example, excels that things come in and they go out immediately, and they gain a nice cut out of that. That is one way to work around this. The other thing is in terms of competition for the downgrading of the Chinese supply chains. There are very, very serious competitors, Vietnam being in the lead, because Vietnam has laid out a framework and policy continuity that is excellent. It has in many ways imitated what China did in the 90s, but done it even better. The thing is that the Japanese economists used to call it the flying geese theory. So there would be one lead Asian country and it would become too labor uncompetitive because wages are so high because it has become rich, and then two more geese and two more geese and two more geese. The thing is, many Asian countries would now be considered developed countries, and so there aren't too many geese. So you have this advantage where you could be labor cost competitive. But the thing is, 10 years down the road, I would like us to think a little long term. 10 years down the road, labor will not be the competitive advantage in the cost structure. It'll actually be transport. And that's why trading with the near economies and the US using Pakistan through the market mechanism to sell here would be advantageous to them and advantageous to us. So the supply chain is characterized by competition, but the other thing is labor cost was not always the advantage.
I understand, but we can work around that nevertheless. One thing I'd like to understand, on Monday, Pakistan urged US lawmakers to expedite the legislation for the renewal of the GSP. There is a GSP as far as the US is concerned, but of course that has not been renewed. Contrary to GSP Plus, that is also in the phase of renewal as far as Pakistan and the EU is concerned. Pakistan is also one of the 10 beneficiaries of the program. How optimistic are you that this could be renewed?
I am optimistic that it will be renewed. This is a kind of double-edged sword. You see, GSP means that you are favored because your conditions need to be made better. I would much rather we not depend on such trade arrangements, that are almost sympathetic. I would rather we be so prosperous that we don't need this sort of thing. But as far as it helping our exporters, it's very positive. It's taken very seriously. And right now, our export markets, our exporters are really struggling in terms of the energy, in terms of the labor, in terms of getting things done right now. So if they get a boost from this, first of all, let's make sure that they're able to fulfill the orders. They did a very good job during COVID. Let's make sure that they can do a good job this time again. But given the challenges that they are facing and the dispiritedness I've remarked among them, I hope that they are able to, even if GSP is approved, fulfill the orders.
I really hope so, and I feel that Pakistan is really gearing towards, coming up to the US expectations as far as bolstering of the trade and economic ties is concerned. And we have ties in so many other fields, defense as well, counter-terrorism, that is going to be discussed next month as well. So I just feel there's this little sixth sense that is saying that we might actually, after a couple of years, now see a robust relationship between Pakistan and the US, and I hope you agree with me on that.
I do agree with you, and let's not forget that the United States, even though its relationship with the world economy has diminished compared to 1945, it is still important. It is still at the cutting edge. It still has the best human capital. It's still going to lead the march of economic progress in the world. So to think that they're offsetting countries that only goes so far. So to have a positive relationship with the United States that is multifaceted is important, and it should be based on respect on both sides and a desire to foster co-prosperity. And the tenor of the meetings that I'm getting right now in TIFA and all is very positive, that both sides have come around to a more mature view of a global prosperity in the post-COVID era.
All right, fingers crossed, Usman. Thank you so very much, Dr. Usman W. Chohan, political economist, talking to us and, of course, discussing the future of Pak-US ties in the whole context of all these meetings that are happening, especially TIFA. And, of course, the result of all these meetings seems to be very, very positive, with also net price highlighting that in his media brief.